Yep. Final things. Thank you guys for being here. If you can, like that screen. Tap your screens, like the live, share the live with anyone you think might be interested. And yeah, we'll get started in a couple minutes. Actually, I think, yeah, we're good. Okay. Yeah, we can get started. So, okay, so thank you guys for being here. Today we're doing Coco Mania 6. My name is Mr. Coco. I'm the owner of this page called The Controversial Compass, a space where only the best ideas win. I'm known for on TikTok hosting formal debates and trying to bring formal debates to TikTok. I also help out with like another project called Day of Debates. Today we got Mike Brigandi versus Edna on Trans Women Are Women. Mike Brigandi is going to be taking the affirmative. Edna is going to be taking the negation. And it's going to be a formal debate where the format is going to be 7-minute openers, 5-minute rebuttals to the openers, and then two rounds of, it's going to be 2 rounds of cross-examination for 5 minutes and then like 3-minute closers. It's going to be a 50-minute debate, and you guys don't have to use all the time for your sections. You can say, I concede my time, and then that'll really be it. A couple clarifications for the debate. During the opener, it's only going to be you talking for your opener. You're going to do your opening statement. Same thing for the rebuttal. When it comes to the cross-examination, I'm going to be timing you guys. If you say the words, I reclaim my time, I stop the timer, I calm the conversation down, and you get to restart your time. So like you're in control of your cross-examination. So like if you want your opponent to stop talking, just say, I reclaim my time, and then I'll pause the timer and, we'll get everything under control and keep going. And I guess lastly, before we start the debate, thank you guys for being here. I appreciate everyone being here. Thank you for your presence. You guys are already gifting. That's amazing. Gift the debaters first. They're here, like entertaining you guys for the night if you have any extra change. If not, we just appreciate you guys being here and watching. That's awesome. Gift them first, and then if you have any extra, gift the host. But you don't have to. We just appreciate your presence. So with that, I'm going to set the timer, and Mike Brigandi, you're going to do your opening statement. It's going to be 7 minutes, and I'll tell you when you can get started.
Are there any judges?
I don't have judges for this debate, but if we really want to, we can do audience vote, and the audience can vote on who the winner is. Or would you actually want judges? I could possibly get like...
I'd rather have judges, but it's okay. It don't matter.
Oh, okay. Next time we can get judges, but I could also get like some people here on speed dial, but yeah, next time we'd have to get them in advance. But so you're going to be doing your 7-minute opener, and it starts whenever you say your first word.
Okay, so to begin, first of all, thank you for allowing me to be here, and as well as Nate and everybody being here. Appreciate it. To begin, I'll define the word woman, because that's typically what people want to hear, right? So woman is a gender identity that aligns with female typical traits. Trans women have a gender identity that aligns with female typical traits. Therefore, trans women are women. So that's essentially my argument. Now, since my argument is logically valid, my opponent would have to find a linguistic issue with this in order to render it false. They could assert that woman equals adult human female, but this definition lacks the utility that my definition provides. See, there's a reason why experts agree that gender and sex are distinct, as woman as a gender identity actually encapsulates the observed psychological, sociological, and neurobiological aspects of gender that a sex-based definition simply cannot. There's more to a person's manhood than just the reproductive system. There's a gender expression. There's a gender expression I exhibit, masculinity. There are social roles I fulfill with respect to my manhood, right? Expectations to be a protector and be assertive. There's an entire identity that I have, and this has much more to do with my manhood than just my reproductive anatomy. In fact, if you swapped out my chromosomes with XX, I'd still be a man. If you swap my genitals with female ones, I'd still be a man. If you reorganized my entire reproductive system to produce large gametes, I'd still be a man. I would still want to do manly things. I would still want to fulfill manly roles. I'd still want to express myself masculine. Literally nothing about my manhood would change except for a few organs. So there are far more psychosocial and behavioral traits associated with my manhood than there are sex traits. So to reduce my manhood down to a few organs is not consistent with the reality of gendered experiences. It's just a blatant rejection of various fields of study that are converging in their understanding of gender versus sex, challenging my opponent's bioessentialist notion. To further bolster my argument, there's an emerging consensus amongst experts that gender identity has a neurobiological basis. Studies find that the brain is responsible for how we identify, our body perceptions, all the gendered aspects that predispose us to being man or woman or any other identity. So here's a heavily cited 2022 study called The Brain, Sex, and Transgender Woman is Shifted Toward Gender Identity in the Journal of Clinical Medicine. It looked at 24 trans women, 24 cis men, and 24 cis women brains via MRI, analyzed them versus a trained algorithm that sampled 500 brains with 90% accuracy and was able to determine people's brain sex. And that brain sex was on a continuum between male and female, allowing for a spectrum of brain types, with cis brains aligning with cis men brains aligning with male type brains, and inversely for cis women. So after analyzing brain scans of the participants, it was found that trans brains were shifted away from their birth sex type brain and towards their gender identity. Now, statistical tests found that the correlations compared to their cis counterparts had a p-value of about 0.016, meaning there was only a 1.6% probability of this being the result of chance. And our identities mostly begin before birth. The brain differentiates based on hormones, can be masculinized or feminized, giving rise to someone's gender identity. Many trans people experience trans phantom sensations, indicating a mental body schema in the brain. Gender dysphoria indicates psychological distress. And gender affirming care actually helps their mental state of affairs. So all of these real and observed phenomena are predicted by my model of gender, not by my opponents. If what my model is saying is true, we would expect to find all these sorts of features in trans folks. But my opponent's view that sex determines gender says all the neuroscience, all the sociological studies, all the psychology, the consensus, which aligns with my position, right? Haslanger, Betcher, Jenkins, all these theorists, organizations like the APA, WPATH, the Endocrine Society, all the neuroscience, like from people like Savik and Schwab, the entire academic understanding of gender today, it's all just wrong because adult human female, and by the way, get out of our bathrooms. So denying this evidence would just be to deny the science. What's more is that I can actually absorb your sex-based definition and say that the female reproductive system is a female typical trait. But clearly there's more to womanhood than that, right? Typically people with female reproductive systems are women, but not always. My opponent's definition doesn't account at all for any of the nuances. And so the adult human female definition is largely compatible with mine, but mine goes further. It's more precise with respect to observations of human behavior. So there's a pragmatic case for the usage of the word woman the way contemporary gender theory does, and not the way my opponent does. Now, remember, my argument is not solely contingent on neuroscience. My opponent would have to find a linguistic issue with my argument. There's also an ethical case to be made here that even if all the science is wrong, it would be ethically beneficial to normalize trans women as women, as maintaining gender affirming care actually saves lives and reduces the dogma and bigotry we so often see fueled by willful ignorance from the opposing side. Instead of denying and shunning away our complexities, I think we should instead, at the very least, try to understand them and ultimately embrace people's complexities, their freedom to be and their freedom to love. So my view is scientifically, pragmatically, linguistically, and ethically superior in every way to my opponents. That's all.
Okay. With that, thank you for your opening statement. And now we're going to move on to Edna's opening statement. I am canceling the timer. And Edna, you're going to get 7 minutes, and it's going to start whenever you say your first word.
Good evening, panelists. Good evening, Mike. Good evening, host. I appreciate you for accommodating me for this debate. I'll go ahead and start now. So, as a gender critical individual, I have noticed an uptick in arguments that aim to prove a neurobiological basis for gender identity. Such claims lack evidence and fail to prove a causal relation between one's neurological development or neuroanatomy and their gender identity. These ideas and arguments promote neurosexism, the incorrect idea that persons' behaviors and their identities are influenced, or gender roles or behaviors or gendered behaviors are influenced by parts of neuroanatomy, are often reductive, sexist, and reduce women and men to stereotypes and social norms that have been historically and systemically utilized to oppress them. Whilst I understand and acknowledge that there are individuals who experience psychological distress with the sex that they were observed, it does not mean that they can have feelings of the opposite sex nor identify as the opposite sex, seeing as though sex is not a feeling, but instead a biological state of being that exists independent of one's feelings, emotions, and thoughts. In today's debate, I will highlight the key flaws in using neurobiology or neurobiological inconclusive studies to prove gender identity, and also prove that my opponent, who clearly doesn't understand gender, seems to confuse concepts of masculinity and femininity with womanhood and manhood. Social and cultural norms typically associated with the sexes, such as being manly or being a protector, as he previously mentioned, actually refer to masculine expectations that women and men do not have to adhere to and are not defined by. Additionally, the idea of gender identity promotes the idea that women and men are simply identities, not people. Right? Referring to womanhood as a gender identity simply reduces women to a thought, reduces women to an idea, something that they are not. They are physical, unique, adult human females. Additionally, my opponent will prove here in today's debate that he lacks the sufficient evidence to make the claims about neurobiology and lacks the evidence required to make claims about neurobiology regarding gender identity. Right? Thank you.
Okay. Thank you for your opening statement. With that, I'm going to end your timer, and we're going to move on to this is just going to be like your rebuttals to the opening statement. So it's not yet time for you guys to cross-examine each other. You'll just be doing like your rebuttals or maybe some things you disagree with about your opponent's opening statement. So, Mike, you're going to get 5 minutes, and it starts whenever you say your first word to respond to his opening statement. It starts when you say your first word. Oh, you're muted. Sorry.
Everything he said was pretty much false, right? So in the domains of science, when we study, especially neuroscience, we're not looking at causal mechanisms, right? Trying to demonstrate a causal mechanism cannot be done in just one mere study, right? It is something that takes a cumulative case to do so. For example, for the longest time, it wasn't known conclusively, there was no causal mechanism between smoking and lung cancer, right? But enough correlative data added up and accumulated into the causal case. Same with things like autism, right? We still don't know the cause necessarily of autism. We still don't know the cause of gravity. So we don't need a causal mechanism to know that, yes, there's evidence that this thing is happening, right? There's a gendered aspect of the brain. And this is why it's the consensus amongst scientists and experts in the field. So yeah, that was all nonsense. And identity is not the same thing as a feeling. When I say identity, I don't mean I just feel this way or have a thought. It's a deep internal sense of who you are. It is something that is done unconsciously. It's not just a feeling or a thought, right? It's something innate to all of us, innate to our conscious experience. That's like saying, consciousness is a feeling. No, it's an identity. It's something deeper than that. So that's a straw man to say that, oh, I think sex is a feeling. Studies aren't conclusive. This is another flaw he's saying. when a study says it's inconclusive, that doesn't mean that it's invalid. It doesn't mean that it doesn't count as evidence. That's just not how science works, right? Again, we build a cumulative case. We build a case that accumulates evidence and data, and then we find it matches to some conclusion. So no one study is going to necessarily be conclusive. In fact, if you were to say that you have to find me one study that's conclusive, then you just have to reject climate change, reject all the things we know about in science because, there's no one study that makes it conclusive, right? It's almost rare to find such a thing in science, but we can still get data. We can still extract data. We can still understand how things happen through science, like climate change and autism and lung cancer. The last thing he said, another thing he said was gender expectations that I described mean every person has to do that. No, again, that's why I make sure to mention the typicality aspect to gender, right? When I say that men are masculine, I mean that in a typical sense. Typically, men are masculine. But clearly, there are women who are masculine. But again, how we categorize men versus women is based on typicalities. And any kind of, you have to have necessary conditions is a blatant begging the question fallacy, right? Because what you're saying is my theory of categorization has to be true, which is essentialism, right? I say, no, that's not what I'm doing. So you're question begging when you say that there must be necessary conditions or else you don't have a definition. That's just not how definitions work in linguistics. And again, last thing, if I have some time, he mentioned sexism and stereotypes. No, by definition, I'm not even talking about sex, right? I'm talking about gender norms and expectations. A stereotype is an oversimplification or a generalization about somebody with a negative connotation attached to it, right? Like women are bad drivers. That's a stereotype. But when I describe an archetype of something, right? Like, women have long hair. That's not a stereotype in the sense that I'm not saying all women must have long hair or all women must be this way. We're saying it's a typicality. And so we're describing an archetype, not a stereotype. How much time?
Yeah, there's a lot of gifts that are coming in, but you had 30 seconds. But would that be the conclusion of your rebuttal?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. I'll end your timer. And now, Edna, it's going to be your turn to do a rebuttal to Mike's opening statement. And then after that, we're going to get into the cross-examinations. You're going to get 5 minutes, and it starts whenever you say your first word.
Okay, so I'd just like to first clarify. I'd just like to first clarify that the claim about neurobiology, especially with reference to the study that Mike cited, which was that brain sex in transgender women is shifted towards gender identity, it actually states in the study that he listed that the brain sex metric that they had utilized still had a transgender women closer to cisgender men, if he had actually read the study, which he clearly hasn't. Additionally, you did reference gender roles. You did reference defining women and men by gender roles because you said that categorization was based on those things. Your statement about roles in society, yet again, are reductive because stereotypes do oversimplify categories. They represent categories as distorted as possible and don't actually categorize the group of people. When you use language like typically, you're not including all women, you're including most and not all. Right? Therefore, it doesn't actually encompass the entire category. You're just using a typicality or a generalization. That's not what we're here to prove. We're not here to prove that typically trans women are women. We're not here to prove. Host, just to clarify, some people think there's an echo.
Okay. Yeah, I can. Here, let me pause your time. I'm gonna pause it at I'm gonna give you 3 minutes, 50 seconds. Let's check for that echo.
I think Mike needs to mute.
All right, mute real quick, Mike, and then say something, Edna.
Yeah, testing. Yeah, it's gone now.
Okay. Okay, right. Cool. I'll time you from my laptop. Give me 1 sec.
Okay.
Let me set a timer for. It's gonna be.
Right. So there. Can I go ahead? Sorry.
Yes, you can start now.
Okay, right. So that is as far as the social arguments are concerned. Aside from that, back to the neurobiological arguments. The neurobiological arguments, if Mike agrees that they only prove correlation, they don't prove causation, he cannot then make claims that gender identity has a neurobiological basis, meaning that it is based in, caused by, or exists because of neuroanatomy. He can state that there are hypotheses that may attempt to prove or attempt to insinuate or propose the idea that gender identity is neurobiologically based. But in order for a person to make the claim that gender identity has a neurobiological basis, is simply to indicate or to propose that it is based in and or is defined by or caused by one's neurological development. Additionally, as far as the social arguments are concerned, we have to understand that there are differences between associative and definitive characteristics of men and women. My opponent here is not defining men and women, but simply defining them or referencing characteristics that are commonly or traditionally associated with men and women. When we look throughout history, we understand that there are lots of women and men who do not conform to traditional gender norms, do not conform to social norms and stereotypes or archetypes associated with their sex, yet are still men and women. So the idea that men and women are defined, even in typical cases, by archetypes and social norms is completely sexist and yet again ignores the lived experience of women and also ignores the oppression that women historically and systemically have faced on the basis of sex, not gender identity. I'm finished. Go ahead.
Okay. Yep. Thank you for your rebuttal to the opening statement. Now we're going to move on to 2 rounds of cross-examination. So during this time, Mike Brigandi, you're going to go first. This is your time to substantiate your position and delegitimize your opponent's position. Like I said in the beginning, if your opponent is talking and you want them to stop, all you have to do is say, I reclaim my time, and then we'll stop the timer, get everything under control, then resume the timer when everything is back under control. So Mike, you're going to start your 5-minute cross-examination. I'll time you from my laptop. And give me 1 sec. And yeah, you're good to go whenever you say your first word.
Great. So, Edna, do you think that in order to define something in a category, you have to have a necessary condition?
I believe that it is best to, not that you always. I actually say yes. Sure. You do.
Okay, you do. Okay. So, when you're defining anything, this applies to every category, there has to be a necessary condition?
In order to make the claim that it is definitive, yes.
Okay. I'm getting it's all right. So, what would you say the necessary condition of a truck is, or a car?
I wouldn't have
distinct from a car.
necessary. I wouldn't have necessary conditions for those concepts. Therefore, I would say I don't have a definition for those things.
You can't define a car?
Not in terms of necessary and sufficient conditions off the top of my head. No,
So you have no idea how to define a car?
I don't. Not in a definitive necessary with providing necessary and sufficient conditions.
This is insane. So clearly, okay, when we define words in linguistics, we're looking at typicality. So I take a prototype theory in linguistics. Right? This is a theory in which we categorize things on prototypical things. Like a robin is a type of bird. It's a prototypical bird, but not every bird has to have those kinds of features of a robin. And so that's a kind of theory in linguistics that doesn't need necessary conditions. Another one is cluster concepts, right? There is no such thing as necessary conditions in cluster concepts. How do you define a game with any condition that's necessary? You can't. It's not possible. That's why we use cluster concepts, and that's why they are valid ways of using definitions and categories. Next question. And if I replace since your definition of woman is an adult human female, correct?
Yes.
Okay. A female is somebody who is female as a reproductive system organized around production of large gametes?
I'll clarify the definition. A female is any organism that is of or primarily denoting the sex that produces large gametes with reference to inherent characteristics developed independently of surgical augmentation and medical intervention.
Okay, so if I replace my reproductive system with a female's, everything else stay the same. Would that make me a woman?
No, because my definition stipulates that the category is defined with reference to characteristics developed independently of surgical augmentation or medical intervention. The replacement of one's reproductive organs would be a medical
Let's
or
say
surgical augmentation.
yeah.
So no.
Let's say there was no surgery. It just I happen to wake up tomorrow morning and have a female reproductive system. Would that make me a woman?
If you belonged to a sequentially hermaphroditic species, yes, sure. But humans are not sequentially hermaphroditic. Humans are gonochoric.
Okay.
So that would not apply to real humans. Humans are gonochoric species, not sequentially hermaphroditic. So no.
Okay. Yeah, so I think this is insane to reduce women down to their freaking sex organs. Now, here's a great follow-up question. I mean, do you agree that there's more to womanhood than just having a reproductive system around producing large gametes?
I believe that there is more to womanhood in an associative sense, not in a determinative sense. So I categorize the womanhood into two categories. You have determinative characteristics or aspects of womanhood, and you have associative characteristics. The determinative is biology that refers to the sex that an individual is born. However, there are associative attributes, things that are not necessarily definitive, but instead are simply ascribed to women. So there is more to it, but not definitively.
Yeah, what I'm saying is womanhood is comprised of just my sex, or is it comprised of more things?
Definitively, it is composed or comprised of sex. Associatively, it can reference other social and cultural concepts, but not definitively. So if you're asking only definitively, yes, it only consists of sex definitively, yes.
So nothing makes me a man except for my reproductive system, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Not my experiences as a man?
No, because none of your experiences are definitive. These are the experiences that men and women experience socially intersect. They are definitive.
Okay. So I don't know what you mean by definitive.
They don't provide necessary conditions for the category.
All right. Now, when we see someone on the street, how do you guess their gender?
Pardon?
How do you guess someone's gender?
I often assume or insinuate based upon particular characteristics.
What are those characteristics?
Often secondary sex characteristics are characteristics I use to insinuate or assume that persons are men and women. The operative word being assumed.
Okay, and you think those are sufficient? Those are just as good indicators of sex as sex is to those secondary characteristics?
No, because
okay, answer that question
sex,
and then I'll conclude.
Secondary sex characteristics do not define sex, so no, they're not as good an indicator. I just want
That's
to clarify.
Not what I asked you. I asked you if they're good indicators, not
You
if
asked if they were just as good an indicator.
Okay, we're gonna have to stop there. So that's gonna be the conclusion of the 5-minute cross-examination from Mike. Now we're gonna go on to Edna's 5-minute cross-examination.
Mm-hmm.
This is the part where you establish your position or delegitimize his position by asking questions. Again, you can reclaim your time. We'll stop the timer, get everything under control whenever you want your opponent to stop talking. So your 5 minutes will start whenever you say your first word.
Okay, sure. All right, so Mike, I have a question. Do you believe that the bed nucleus of the striatum terminalis in the human hypothalamus causes or is causal to one's gender identity? Yes or no?
We don't know if it's causal, but we have evidence that is correlated to gender identity, and that's sufficient to warrant the belief in the model of gender theory in which we understand it to be the reason why people have gender identity. That's
well,
it's not just that, by the way. There's
I reclaim my time. When you refer to the reason for something, you're referring to the cause. So when you say that it's a reason for gender identity, are you referring to the reason that it is there?
Well, we can infer a cause, right? This is how neuroscience works. We infer causes by the correlative data. And if there's enough of it, we can say that there's a causal mechanism here, that we can infer that there may be a causal mechanism, just like lung cancer and smoking.
Okay, sure. All right. So I'm going to ask a question. Do you believe that persons are born trans?
No, nobody's born trans. They're born with their identity.
But isn't a trans person a person whose gender identity does not align with their sex?
Yeah, with their
so if they're born with the identity,
not their sex. No, let me clarify. Not just their sex. Their assigned gender or sex.
Okay, so the sex of the individual. Okay,
and that happens when you're born. That happens after you're born.
Okay, great. When do you think gender identity develops in humans?
The evidence suggests that it develops even as a fetus in the womb.
Okay. What is the methodology that was utilized to determine that these parts of the brain or gender identity is formed in the womb?
we study brain scans of people and fetuses in the womb, and we look at their dimorphisms in their brains. This is like basic science.
I reclaim my time. Really quickly, how did we determine this is the question? Just to clarify, you're not answering the question. The question is, what was the... I reclaim my time. I reclaim my time. The question is, just to clarify, what are the methodologies that were utilized and the name of a source, please?
The methodology is by observing with MRI scans the fetus's brains, and we look at the sexual dimorphic parts of the brains between females and males, and that's how we know that there's a sexual dimorphism happening even in the utero.
What's the source for that?
Sure, let me pull it up.
Host, I have a quick question. While a person's looking up a source, does the time continue or does it pause? Since there's no dialogue happening.
It is up to both of you guys. Are you both okay with pausing the time?
Here's one called thalamus development in fetuses. It's called complex trajectories of brain development in the healthy human fetus. And I looked at the thalamus and saw it observed these dimorphisms in fetuses. You want more?
Really quick pause, guys. Are you both okay with like pausing when you guys look for sources, or do you want the time to keep?
It's fine.
Yes, please. Yeah. So, repeat the name of the source, please.
Complex trajectories of brain development in healthy human fetus.
Complex trajectories. Okay, 1 second. I have it here. Okay, and where in that study does it indicate a methodology that proves sexual dimorphism in the brain?
It says we studied 166 healthy fetuses that underwent MRI between 18 and 39 completed weeks gestation. We created three-dimensional high-res reconstructions of the brain and calculated volumes for left and right cortical gray matter, fetal white matter, deep subcortical structures in the cerebellum.
Yeah, this doesn't reference anything with regard to sexual dimorphism. Where does it prove sexual dimorphism in the human brain?
It looked at the differences in the brains between these female and male fetuses.
It does not say that. Sex is not referenced once in the study. You haven't read the study. The study references nothing about sex. The study simply states, yeah, where in the study does it reference sex?
I can pull it up if you just look at the methodology
I'm reading it.
Study. Do you have the full study in front of you?
I have the abstract, which is what I'm able to access.
Oh, the abstract. That's why you're confused.
Okay. Well,
the abstract is not the whole study.
You just read
the materials and methods.
I reclaim my time. Mike, can you show to us where in the study it references sexual dimorphism?
Yes.
Yeah, read it and show me what line I'm to look at.
Image segmentation and volumetric analysis.
Yeah, so the study just references normal fetal brain growth independent of sex. The words male and female are not used once in the study.
Yes, it is.
They're looking where?
You're not reading it in front of me. You're not reading it.
Yeah, read what it says about sex. You're lying. The study references nothing. I reclaim my time. The study references I reclaim my time. I reclaim my time. The source I reclaim my I reclaim my time.
Pause real quick.
You don't have the study in front of you.
I do.
And then continue.
Yeah, the source doesn't reference biological sex. It does not reference sex differences in the brain during the fetal period. It just references normal fetal growth with regard to MRI measurements of brain volume and how the brain regions develop between the period of 18 to 39 weeks. It has nothing to do with sexual dimorphism. Mike is respectfully lying about what is contained in the source.
Okay, we have to stop right there. Now we're going to move on to the second round of cross-examination. Mike, you're going to get 5 minutes. It starts when you say your first word.
Yeah, so Edna, do you think that in order to know something, we have to have a conclusive evidence of it?
To know of something, no. I think in order to make definitive claims about things, I think...
I reclaim my time. So everything you just stated about everything you just stated before was nonsense, that I have to have conclusive data to know something.
No, so I just want to clarify my statement. My statement is that in order for you to make definitive claims about things, like making the statement that there is a factual neurobiological basis for gender identity, that you would need to have definitive proof of. Saying that,
I reclaim my time. What do you mean by proof?
Pardon?
What do you mean by proof?
It just needs to provide evidence or to provide, to establish a fact or truth of something, essentially.
No,
that's not. You asked me for my reduction of the word. Saying no is not.
That's not what proof is. Well, this is why you're being confused, right? Because evidence is not the same thing as proof. We don't look at proof in the realms of science. Mostly, it's mostly the realms of logic and math. However, do you agree that I don't need proof, just evidence of something in order to have to make a claim about something being true?
A definitive claim. You're making a definitive claim that
What do you mean
gender
definitive claim?
identity.
What do you mean definitive claim?
Yeah, you made a claim that it is proven factually that there is a neurological basis for gender identity, and then provided a source that actually had nothing to do with the statement. And also, just to clarify, there's a difference between sufficient evidence and just evidence. There can be circumstantial evidence, evidence that is only true in particular instances, and then you have sufficient evidence to prove.
I reclaim my time. I reclaim my time. No. So again, we have sufficient evidence because of the cumulative data. So you're looking at one study and go, oh, that study's bad. But you're forgetting the dozens and dozens of papers that demonstrate that the sexual differentiation of the brain. Right? I have multiple other studies. You're just looking at one
study doesn't prove it.
Well, there's another one called the sexual differentiation of the human brain.
So can we concede that the first study you reference has nothing to do with sexual dimorphism?
It does. If you look at the actual
can you show
paper.
it? Can you show it?
No, this is not your time. This is my time.
The host did say that he had the opportunity
I
to
reclaim
prove.
my time. I reclaim my time here.
Is reclaiming?
So, yeah. So, at the end of the day, you are just denying the science. You're rejecting the entire scientific consensus.
You haven't proven
Do you acknowledge that the scientific consensus is in my favor, that there is a neurobiological basis behind gender identity?
No. There is not a neurological. I'm answering you. There is no neurobiological basis that is proven or conclusive. There are hypotheses.
Sorry, I reclaim my time.
He's reclaiming.
Okay. You're rejecting the scientific consensus, right? The Endocrine Society agrees. And this is an organization backed by thousands of experts who agree that there is a neurobiological basis behind gender identity.
You have yet to provide a source to that effect.
All you're doing is denying science. You're not actually providing science. No, I reclaim my time. I reclaim my time.
He's reclaiming.
All you're doing, you're providing a valid criticism and scientific criticism. You're just pretending I'm wrong because I don't meet your own standards that are subjective to you. That's not a scientific criticism. You're going against the consensus for no good reason. We also have an analytic review, a mega-analysis, which looked at hundreds of trans people and found, again, meaningful brain differences between cis men and trans women. So again, it's called the Neuroanatomy of Transgender Identity, a mega-analytic study in 2021. This further demonstrates that my case is true. Okay, anyway. Now, when you say, I want to talk about before, when you reduced, are you going to reduce womanhood just down to someone's organs, or is there more to womanhood than just that?
This question was already answered.
I didn't get a clear answer for you.
You did. I said that it is definitive. It is only defined by biology, and then there are associative aspects that apply socially.
What do you mean? There are other aspects to womanhood than just sex.
But they're not definitive. That's the statement.
What do you mean? What do you mean by definitive?
I just explained they don't provide necessary conditions and/or criteria for the category. So necessary conditions What's the necessary condition for being female? The necessary conditions are genetic. So for males and females, there are genetic necessary conditions that allow you to fall into either of the two reproductive strategies. So I'll give you for male.
What is the one single trait that all females have?
There isn't one single. It's a conjunct of genetic traits.
Oh, okay. So there is no single necessary trait.
There are necessary.
It's a cluster.
Necessary.
No, I reclaim my time. I reclaim my time.
Yep.
You are using a cluster concept for female, because you're associating 3 or 4 different parts of a female reproductive system to determine sex. So you're using a cluster concept just as I am, and you're saying I can't do it? How?
Okay.
That's incorrect.
That's incorrect. That's not
right there. We have to stop right there, guys. Now we're going to move on to Edna's 5-minute cross-examination. It's going to start whenever you say your first word.
Okay. I just want to clarify that I'm not using a cluster concept because cluster concepts don't have necessary conditions, even conjunctively. I'm giving you a conjunct of necessary conditions, just to clarify that are genetic. It doesn't mean it's a cluster concept because the cluster concept uses sufficient conditions conjunctively, not necessary ones. So you actually mischaracterize what a cluster concept is. Cluster concepts don't have conjunctive necessary conditions, they have conjunctive sufficient conditions. I'm assuming you know the difference between necessary and sufficient conditions. Now, I'll give you the necessary conditions just to clarify before I move on to critiquing your position. To be male, you need, in order to be male, the necessary conditions are a functioning sex-determining region gene of the Y chromosome in conjunction with complete or majoritative androgen receptivity and/or the upregulation of an analogous or homogeneous gene in conjunction with complete or majoritative androgen receptivity. With that being said, you're yet to prove in your source that you listed originally, which I'm not going to let you run away from. The source that you provided about the MRI data does not have anything to do with sexual dimorphism in the brain. I'd like for you to point to the page and paragraph where that study titled, let me just pull up the title again for you, where the study titled,
Yeah, it's called. I'll give it to you. It's called cerebellar hemispheric asymmetry. You cut me off. That's why I couldn't say it, but now I can say it.
Sorry, where is that in the study?
Oh my gosh, cerebellar hemispheric asymmetry.
What does that have to do? Where does it reference sex? I reclaim my time. I reclaim my time. I reclaim my time. I'm reclaiming my time. I'm asking you to prove that your study has to do with sexual dimorphism and gender identity. Those two words are not used in the study.
That's not what I said.
I reclaim my time.
He's reclaiming.
Please listen to the question. Your study titled "The Complex Trajectories of Brain Development in the Healthy Fetus." Where does it state in that study that it has to do with gender identity and sexual dimorphism?
Oh, so now you're moving the goalpost.
I'm not moving the goalpost. I reclaim my time. I reclaim my time. I reclaim my time. I reclaim my time. Your source, the original source that you gave, was complex trajectories of brain development.
Which has to do with sex.
I reclaim my time.
He's reclaiming.
Where does it reference sexual dimorphism?
Cerebellar hemispheric asymmetry has also been noted in infancy and later adulthood with regional differences in cerebellar GM between males and females.
Where in the study is that located? Show it.
If you read the actual study, it's called cerebellar.
Can you show it on screen? Show it on screen from that study.
Oh my god, bro. You're so pathetic.
Show it on screen. And what I'd like you to do when you show it on camera is to show the title of that source and scroll down in the same source and then show it. So show us the title first, please. The title. Show us the title of the source that you're reading. The title.
It's the same one, sir.
No, go up to the top. Okay,
it's the same one. Relax, bro.
Now go down to the bottom and show us where it references sexual differences.
Right there, female.
Hemispheric asymmetry of the cerebellum has also been known in infancy and later adulthood with regional differences in cerebellar GM between males and females.
Okay, beautiful.
Adults and infants, so you can see that I was right?
Sure. I was asking you to
All right, thank you. Thank you for conceding.
Okay, beautiful. Now, with regard to the sexual differences, right? Are they how do we know that they correlate to gender identity?
All right, so how we know that gender identity is correlated with the brain is because we look at people's brains and we see that the parts that light up with respect to how they feel about themselves and their bodily perceptions. And we have dozens and dozens of papers on this that show this.
I'm sorry, how does this prove a correlation? How do we determine that these parts of the brain light up with regard to their gender identity?
Look at the MRI. Oh my gosh, look, you're not giving a scientific critique, right? How we do it is by looking at their brains, looking at the parts that light up, look at the networks that are associated with identity that we know from previous background neuroscientific knowledge. And then we recognize, yeah, there's a correlative case to be made here that the brain has a lot to do with gender identity. This is why it's the consensus amongst neuroscientists.
I reclaim my time. I reclaim my time. You need to provide a source indicating that they're functionally different, right? Because gender identity would be a function of the brain, not just a structure. You're proving structural differences, not functional differences. And you prove that these differences are functional.
So do you agree that when, if I were to impact my brain somehow, that there would be a functional difference there?
I reclaim my time. Answer the question directly, please.
The answer is you don't need to have a functional study that says the brain part causes this to function differently. This is background knowledge.
I reclaim my time. Is gender identity a function? Is gender identity a function or a structure?
Neither. It's an identity. It's a deeper sense of.
I'm sorry. Is identity not a function? I reclaim my time. Is identity not a function of the brain?
It's a way. Yes, you're right. It's a way.
Okay, so it's not. Okay, great. So it's not neither. You concede that then. It's actually a function. So you have to prove now that these dimorphic differences are functional. Can you prove functional? Yes, you do. I reclaim my time. I reclaim my time. I reclaim my time. If you're saying that gender identity is a function of the brain, and these parts of the brain are, I reclaim my time. And you're saying that gender identity has it is proven in these brain structures. You would have to prove the functional differences. You have to
Yeah,
prove functional
so
differences, not structural ones. So can you prove?
no, that's false. I don't have to prove a functional difference. Just like I don't have to prove that if my brain were to get a weaken, I would have a functional difference. This is
Okay, we have to
basic
stop
knowledge.
there. We have to stop there. Now we're moving on to the final statements. That was 2 rounds of cross-examination. Now we're moving on to closing statements. Mike Brigandi, you're going to get 3 minutes on the clock. And give me 1 sec to set up the timer. It's going to start whenever you say your first word.
Yeah. So again, Nate's entire position is scientifically dull. There's nothing to it because we don't have to prove functional differences. We have correlative data. That's enough, right? We don't have a causal mechanism for freaking autism. We don't even know what causes autism, but we have evidence of correlative data that it happens. And that's how we can suggest that autism is caused by some things in the brain. We know that brain lesions can affect the functioning of the brain. And so it's basic consensus amongst neuroscientists that the way the brain is structured gives rise to its function. There's no study that proves this, just like there's no study that proves gravity is caused by something. We don't know the causal, but we still can make a correlative case. Yeah, the fact that my opponent couldn't even define what a car is means his entire linguistic framework is just garbage. Obviously, we can define what a car is. I showed him the evidence of sexual dimorphism in infancy. He just rejects it, supposedly. He rejects the scientific consensus. He rejects any data that even remotely challenges his view. He's moving the goalpost, and what he does is he sets the bar so high because most people are not scientifically literate. They don't know that you don't have to prove causation to have evidence in science. We rarely do that in science, but we have evidence. Sex versus gender associated brain structure, right? Neurobiological characteristics associated with gender identity. These are all studies that demonstrate my point. And they all form the consensus. They charge the consensus that gender identities come from the brain. And by the way, my argument actually is not contingent solely on the neuroscientific data. Remember, it's just trans women have woman identities. That identity is something that we could observationally understand. We all have gendered roles, gender expressions, and gender identities. This is something that's blatantly obvious, and he's just rejecting that, saying, no, it has to do with your sex. He's reducing people down to their sexual organs and their genitalia. This is absurd. There's more to me that makes me a man than just my penis. It's more than that, right? It has to do with far more than just that. And so, there's also the ethical side to this, right? Acknowledging trans women as women saves their lives. Enabling access to gender-affirming care saves people's lives. And so his view, which is inherently dogmatic and inherently bigoted and unwilling to listen to the science, is only in the long term going to harm more people and make the world even more bigoted. And so he didn't remotely attack my position. He did not remotely challenge the science. He did nothing but just say, no, I don't believe you. No, prove function, when this is not a scientific
Finish with
approach.
your last sentence.
I'm done.
Okay. Thank you for your closing statement. Edna, now you get 3 minutes on the clock to do your final statement. It starts when you say your first word.
Okay. To close this debate, I would like to highlight that I vehemently disagree that my opponent has actually provided sufficient neurological data or neurobiological data to indicate his claims. His claims simply highlight structural differences between the brains of males and females, not functional differences between males and females. Functional differences have to do with the way that the brain behaves or the way that the brain carries out a particular role. Structural differences simply have to do with the way that the part of the brain is formed. For example, things like volume and size. My opponent has failed to sufficiently prove his claim that gender identity has a neurobiological basis, but instead has provided structural dimorphic differences between the brains of males and females and not functional ones. He has not proven that the differences are functional and have to do with gender identity, but instead has emotionally stated that I'm just denying scientific consensus without providing said consensus, right? There is no scientific consensus that gender identity is located in the brain, because although there are subtle differences or group differences between transgender and quote cisgender people, the findings are inconsistent, they overlap, and are not diagnostic. There is no clear neurological sign or signature for gender identity, and no causal mechanism has been demonstrated. So my opponent has failed to demonstrate his claim. Additionally, it is not a reduction to refer to men and women as adult human males and adult human females. Actually, you mentioned ethics, and ethically, I think it's best to define women as a sex class because it acknowledges and creates space for me to fight for their sex-based rights, something that women historically has struggled with, something that women historically and systemically have been oppressed on the basis of. So acknowledging that women are adult human females not only allows for me to protect their sex-based spaces and their sex-based rights, but also allows for me to acknowledge who they truly are without reducing them to social norms, gender roles, as well as neurobiological behaviors. Thank you.
Cool. Are you concluding your closing statement there?
I concede my time. Thanks.
Okay, cool. Well, there you have it, guys. That's going to be the conclusion of the debate. It was an amazing debate on the topic of trans women are women. If Edna and Mike can stick around, we are going to do audience questions like I normally do for like these debates. Audience, you can come up and you can do questions, comments, concerns, or critiques. We'll take as many as we can before they have to go. Please be respectful. I don't want any like disrespectful comments or anything. Let's try to keep it professional. And with that, I am going to do an audience vote. I'm not declaring a winner for this debate, but I'm just going to do the audience vote and then give the results. And it's up to the audience who won. Okay, cool. Yeah, welcome to the panel. It's good to have you.
Thank you for having me. So yeah, I just wanted to address a couple things with you, Mike, if that's okay. If you wanted to debate, Mike, I'm sure you and I could organize something because I actually do study neurology, as you seem to be like very, say you're well versed in. But I just wanted to bring up that the neurological consensus is not that gender identity is in the brain, despite multiple attempts to prove that it is. Most are still arguing that the male and female brain are overstated and methodologically weak. And I can give you some sources to this. Give me just 1 second. So the first source I can give you. So this is a systematic review of neuroimaging in transgender and cisgender individuals. And it said that there's not enough consistent evidence to show gender identity in the brain. And people's brains actually usually resemble their natal sex. And it's called structural and functional and metabolic brain differences as a function of gender identity or sexual orientation, and the PMID is 339-56296. Then there's also Holmes, and Monks. They did a study in 2019 where they said that neuroscience studies are assuming too quickly about differences in the brain related to gender identity. And it's called Bridging Sex and Gender in Neuroscience by Shedding a Prior Assumption of Causality. And then, so those are the neurosciences. Mike, we can talk about it another day. I can send you these studies. We can talk about it. But then I also just wanted to ask a question, if that's okay.
Go for it.
Yeah, so the endocrine societies, right, the APA, the AMA, all these organizations, right? The American Urological Association, the American Society for Reproductive Medicine, the American College of Physicians, all these organizations, they state that gender identity or gender is more than just a sex. That's what their statement is. There's more to gender than just sex. Now,
sure, but that wasn't the claim I was addressing.
I agree with you that the data is although there's a good amount of it, right? It's not like most scientists will say this, but I will say that it's the consensus that gender identity does have a neurobiological underpinning, especially from those organizations I mentioned to you. So, yeah,
sure, that's fine. I'll ask my question.
It's debatable what.
Sorry, go ahead, Mike. I'm sorry.
It's debatable what the consensus is. I agree with you there, but I would say that there is evidence that the strong evidence that my case is correct.
I mean, I can acknowledge a correlation. Like I say, you and I can debate this at some point if you like, because you seem very versed in neurology. I'm currently doing a master's in it, so we can definitely have this conversation. But I want to get to my question because I know the people are asking me to. My question was, do you think that just because people think there needs to be necessary conditions to define something, that means they can define every and any word?
What? No,
So Nate
there are
said
several
that.
ways of there are several categories of linguistics when we categorize things. There can be categories that require necessary conditions. There also are also not categories that do that. Most categories of objects do not require necessary conditions. Games, cars, trucks, gender, none of these require necessary conditions. And so, yeah. Does that answer your question?
Kind of. I would just say that I think that even if we could acknowledge that some things don't need necessary conditions, to ask someone to define something that because they said that words do need necessary conditions when it's something you're asking them to define that isn't relevant to the conversation. I don't know why it tracks or how it came up, but that was it. But like I say, if you want to debate, Mike, I can DM you and we can definitely
very
talk about
relevant. It was to
neurology.
show him. I asked him specifically, does it apply to all categories of objects that you need a necessary condition? He said yes. And then I said, okay, well, define a car.
But that doesn't necessarily mean he knows all the conditions of every word.
Please listen to me. He couldn't define a fucking car. That's
my
problem.
point.
This is a red flag. This is a red flag in your view.
Okay, but even if he could have, even if he could have put it, my point is more the fact that.
No, stop. This is the problem with yours and his logics. They do not account for the nuances in linguistics or science or endocrinology or human behavioral research. Nothing. You guys just say, no, there's no evidence. Adult human female. This is absurd on your behalf.
Sure. Well, I acknowledge the correlation. You and I haven't spoken about this directly, so you're just assuming my position. But it's like I say, just because someone says that words need necessary conditions, that doesn't mean they can define every word. So my point is more bringing up define car isn't something that would need to be done in this conversation. But that's about it.
Yes,
but
it does.
We can talk
That's
another
exactly
time.
what needs to happen, right? I had to
probably
show
talk
him
another
how
time.
absurd his view was. It was called a reductio.
Yeah,
but it was not a reduction.
Yeah,
Define car. He couldn't
I'll drop. I'm sorry. That host wants me to go. I'm sorry. Mike, we can talk about it later.
To not be able to define what a
you're
car
totally
is.
But yeah, we can. I'll catch up with Mike. But thank you for having me, host. Thank you.
Yep. Thank you. Come back anytime. Hey, Max. Welcome to the panel. Feel free to ask your question or give a comment, question, concerns, or critique.
Yeah, this was a wonderful debate. I really wanted to ask a question to the both of them because I wasn't here initially for, I would say, the first half. So I may have not gotten a clear answer to this because I've been looking for it from the both of them because I've seen them do lots of debates on gender and trans women specifically, whether or not they are or not women. What do you guys use to differentiate the two categories that would make each one distinct? Because I know we have the term man and we have woman. To Mike, I would love to ask, what do you use to differentiate the two categories? And the same thing to Edna as well.
Typicalities, right? So that's how we categorize things for the most part. We use cluster concepts, folks. We don't use definitive things that only one category can have. We don't use exclusivities, right? We don't use this with anything. And so we use it. I differentiate them based on typicalities, right? Men, typical qualities. Women are more female typical qualities, and this actually encapsulates everything about who women are. Okay, and so everything Nate said was just about you have to have a necessary condition is just nonsense.
And really quick before you guys continue, the poll is up. It's this little blue clipboard in the corner of the screen. Everybody that's in here, all 783 people, feel free to vote for who you thought won in that poll. And thank you guys for being here. Thank you for all the gifts. And if you can, please tap your screen, like the live, and share with whoever you might think is interested. Continue, Max.
Yeah. I want Edna to speak because I was asking to both of them.
Okay, sure. So I define males and females, as I said before, as adult human males and adult human females, sex-based difference. So females are any organisms that are of or primarily indicating or denoting the sex that produces large gametes, and men are adult human males, meaning adult humans who are of or primarily denoting the capacity to produce small gametes. Mike's definition of typicalities doesn't really address much because the societal typicalities between men and women, as I stated before, are largely stereotypical and don't actually give you an accurate impression of men and women. They actually oversimplify men and women. If we were to do this with any other category, it would actually be quite absurd. So, for example, if I said black people typically go to family barbecues, or black people typically listen to Tupac Shakur, or black people typically do a particular set of social actions, it would just sound a little bit racist, or just wouldn't be actually encapsulating the entire category. I'd just be excluding lots of black people and then not defining them accurately. So when he uses societal typicalities to define men and women, he's excluding lots of women and men, and he's also using a lot of stereotypes. So that's my response.
Okay, and with that, we do have to get to the other guests, but thank you, Max, for coming up, and feel free to come back to my panel anytime. If you follow me, I'll follow you, but thank you for being here.
Of course, have a nice one to all of you guys.
Yeah, you too.
To make it clear, I do have to leave in about 4 minutes because I was supposed to host a live at 7 to just talk with my followers. I am sick. I do have bronchitis. I'm supposed to be resting. So I only have about 4 minutes remaining before I have to go and then go and get my rest after I do host my live after this. So just letting you know. Apologize for the time.
And that's totally fine. We'll do like 2 more guests and then you can go ahead. Cease really wanted to come up, but let's see what he has to say. Go ahead, Cease.
No, I'm going to be very brief. Nate, I wanted to challenge you to have another debate on the same platform against me this time.
Okay, sure.
Are you willing to do that?
Sure.
Okay, then in that case, just host. You can set it up, and let me know what day works for him, and we can figure it out. Would you be fine doing it next week? Would that work?
I'll let you know what time because I have a few stuff coming up that I planned with my live viewers, so I don't know what time I'll be available for the following couple of weeks, but I'll let you know.
Okay, just let me know because I think I can show everybody listening to this conversation that you're just completely incorrect in the way you framed it. That actually your perspective and definitions is completely inconsistent with how even you navigate your life. So I like a chance to show why that's the case in a setting where we're not over talking each other. So
let's keep it professional.
Absolutely. All right, thanks for letting me up. I just wanted to throw that challenge out there. So don't keep me waiting too long. All right, let me know.
Sure. Host, I'm going to drop and come back on a different account. My phone's about to die and the mic is plugged into it, so I'm going to just jump up on my iPad. So I'm just dropping for 10 seconds just to return.
Totally fine.
Remainder of the 2 minutes. Give me a second, please.
And let me bring up the next guest. Let's see. We have like a ton of people in this guest request. Okay, let me do. Okay, I randomly picked somebody. Hey, give me 1 second. We'll get to you. And let's see. I'm waiting for Edna to like load in. I might have to. Okay, you're good now, Edna? No, we're just waiting for him. Thank you guys for being here. Thank you guys for tapping the screen. I guess continue to tap the screen. Thank you for all the gifts. Thank you for gifting the debaters. Clearly, they have done their research in regards to this. And yeah, I love that I'm able to host these debates. You good, Edna?
Yeah, I think I'm here. Can you hear me, or am I cutting out?
Yeah, we can hear you. Okay. So the conserve.
It's fine. Tina's fine.
Okay, I'll call you Tina. My bad.
There you go.
Thank you for being here. Do you have a question for anybody?
Sure. I have, first I have constructive criticism, and then I have a question for the both of them. First, the constructive criticism is, in the beginning, Mike had brought up it wasn't a really good analogy of the car thing of why Edna couldn't define car. There is no actual one. So if you could also define car for me, that'd be great. Since you said it was insane that he couldn't because you can't really define it. You could describe the parts of a car because cars are very different between trucks and cars. So I'd think that had nothing to do with the conversation. It was irrelevant. Also, the question between the both of them is, can they give me one definitive characteristic of a woman that doesn't apply to any man?
Yeah, this is a misunderstanding of how definitions work. I don't know why I have to explain this to you guys like 10,000 times. We don't use definitive features that are necessary in every way we categorize objects, right? Obviously, a car is going to be subjective to the context. A car is going to be an automobile that carries passengers, right? We can say that's a car versus a truck, which is going to have distinct features, but based on typicalities, right? Trucks typically are bigger, but not all trucks are bigger. Some cars might be bigger than trucks. The point is that how we categorize things is based on cluster concepts. We don't base it on definitive features all the time. So your version of linguistics is just completely confused.
Sure, but you didn't define what a car is, and you didn't answer the other question. That's what is one definitive characteristic of being a woman.
An automobile that carries passengers.
Okay, sure. So can you define what...
I couldn't do that, but I could, right? See how your linguistics is just completely ridiculous?
But you just said it's subjective, so I don't understand. If that's your definition of a woman...
Words are subjective. They're just contextual, right?
So if you give your subjective definition of a car, it would be relevant because that's your subjective definition. So we believe a car is, versus if Edna would have a different one.
Another planet, if I go to another fucking galaxy, their version of car is going to be different. It's subjective, right? How we give words meaning. It's subjective.
But also,
I don't know why you guys can't understand this.
Okay, but let's not try to make it a secondary debate. Tina, do you have any final questions, comments, concerns, or thoughts?
Yeah, sure. It was the final question of, can both of them define or give me one definitive characteristic that all women have that no man has?
There's no such thing.
Let's do that.
There's no such thing.
But mine is sex. Women are female, men are male.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Edna, welcome down mode. I appreciate y'all. He won.
Female is not a trait, right? Female is a cluster of traits by his view. So that's also confused.
It's a cluster of cluster of necessary genetic genetic necessary conditions that lead to a person having the quality or state of being female. Yeah.
So it's not one necessary trait. It's just a cluster of traits.
It's a cluster of necessary traits, which means it's not a cluster concept. It's just a set of necessary. You can have a bunch of necessary conditions.
So what are the four necessary traits?
You could just leave you ladies to it.
Hey guys, we do have to get to the other guests.
Okay. So I want to ask Edna while Mike made a direct correlation between 2 to 3 different papers with because that second paper that you tried to debunk, all he was proving is that we can analyze the differences between male and female fetus brains, right? That's all he was proving. He did not once did he claim anything about the difference between sex and gender from that one paper. He tried to correlate from all papers. You made a distinctive question that he had to prove, and he furthered that evidence.
No, he didn't.
He did, because he referenced the other papers. Because
again, can I explain how he didn't?
I'm not done.
Wait, let him finish. Go ahead, Misfit.
So, because this happens all throughout medical science, right? So you can categorize cancers to tumors. You have to further then categorize tumors down to lymphomas, hematomas, etc. Right? This happens throughout science, right? And he's already proven. There's a definitive multiple papers from decades upon decades that back up the evidence. You're wanting a conclusive thing, but there's not a single paper out there that has conclusive evidence for anything. Even the law of relativity, right? There's no conclusive paper for that. But we have enough data where we can back that up. That's the whole point. We have enough data from multiple different neuroscientists that can back this up. The same thing for any sort of field of science. So I don't understand why you have the ability to turn down the obvious correlations.
Are you done?
Are you asking your question?
I don't know when the question was going to finish.
Yeah, my question is, why are you turning down basic correlational science? Like that's how we literally go through science. We have to find correlations from different physicians from different.
His correlational studies prove structural differences, not functional differences. I highlighted this if you were listening. Clearly, you weren't. Structural differences have to do with things like size and volume, which I already admit that there are differences structurally between the sexes as far as our brains are concerned. But functionally, they aren't proven to be different. That's what Mike would have to prove in order to make the claim that they have to do with gender identity. Because gender identity, I'm not done. Gender identity is a function of the brain, not a structure. You'd have to prove that the structure influences that function. That's what you'd have to do.
Okay,
and
so
he
you
did not provide. And I'm still talking. He didn't provide.
Let Edna finish.
He didn't provide sufficient evidence that these parts of the brain are causal to the way that the person identifies, or prove, or are based, or are the reason for people's gender identity. He just pointed out differences between males and female brains structurally. You need to bridge the gap between structure and function in order to prove that it has to do with gender identity. That's the reason I turned down the study.
Okay, so with that logic, we would have to then redefine the entire diagnostic system when it comes to medicine.
No,
because, yes, you do. Can you prove to me the functionality and structure from a lymphoma right now? Can you find me a paper? Can you find me a definitive paper that can do that?
That can do what?
Can you find me, because the evidence in this thing that you want from Mike, can you do the exact same thing for me for a lymphoma? Something that we know exists.
I haven't done much research on lymphomas. I'm not sure that I could, but I'm sure if I looked into it, I would be able to.
With that,
that's the answer.
You're asking me to justify something. You're asking me to justify something that I haven't.
You can't prove that gravity functions.
Can I just finish, please?
So really quick. So Edna's gonna finish, and then we can't go too long into like little debates. We do have a lot of people in line. So go ahead, Edna, and finish. And then actually, I'll let Mike respond, and then we'll go to the next person. So go ahead, Edna.
Okay. I was just going to say I haven't done extensive medical research on lymphomas, so I wouldn't have a stance on it right now. But I'm sure that if I were to look into it, you'd be able to find what causes lymphomas or what is the cause of those things. But yet again, Mike's claim is that there is a neurological basis or reason that people identify as a particular gender. He has not proven that. All he's shown are structural differences between the brains, not functional differences that have anything to do with the way that a person identifies.
Mike, go ahead and respond, and then we'll move on to the next guest.
Yeah, there's no study that proves the function of something, right? We're looking at correlative cases. There's no study that proves that gravity functions the way that we know, right? It's just going to be based on correlative cases. There's no study that proves that if I smack my face caused my pain, right? There's no study on that. But we have enough correlative data. We have enough consistency amongst people who smack their heads and they feel the pain. That's how we make the case that there's a functional change by structural differences. The same, especially with the brain, because of things like lesion data. We know that the brain lesions can affect the functioning of the brain, right? Brain tumors can affect the function of the brain. We can't prove it, but we have evidence that it's the case. Enough of it to go, yeah, the tumor is probably giving you those headaches, right? Like, this is absurd to set the bar so fucking high that, no science exists because everything has to be proven with one study. Yeah, that's so unscientific. That's garbage.
Okay. With that, we do have to move on to the other guests that we have in line. And yeah, Edna, whenever you need to go, feel free to. Thank you for being
I'll take one more person and then I'll go because everyone's asking me to.
Okay, yeah, that totally works. And thank you both for being here and being on my platform. I mean, like,
for hosting us.
Yeah, like, you guys have clearly done research into this topic, and we've literally had like 800 people in this live. That's a very huge accomplishment. People really tuned in for your debate. Some people were saying that we should have got judges instead of just like audience vote. Maybe you guys can run this back again and we can get judges, but it's up to you guys. I would be happy to get that done as quickly as possible. And yeah, we can get judges and like actually like settle like an actual winner. But with that, we can move on to our next guest. Thank you for being up here, Misfit. Come back anytime. We already follow each other, and yeah, you're always welcome.
Thank you. W Mike.
And so we're gonna get our next guest. We're gonna do one more. People were requesting for Tony Tiger, so let's see. But yeah,
what's up?
Tony Tiger. Good to have
you. Good to be here. Thank you. My question is for Mike. Mike, are you familiar with the 4 types of proof? And if so, what types of proofs qualified or were being used in the evidence that you were trying to present?
So we don't deal with proofs in science, right? That's mathematical, logical analysis. In science, we deal with things like p-values and Cohen's d effect sizes, things like that, in which we look at the available evidence and we build a case, a credence level increases, and we get to an approximate truth based on the evidence. So that's what I demonstrated through the studies I mentioned. We're looking at brains. We're looking at the way the way the brain's functioning, and that changes the way.
There are actually 4 types of proof when in use in philosophical and argumentation, which includes logic. And if you're talking about math is just another form of logic. So there are 4. Are you familiar with them? I'll tell you them if you don't know.
Go ahead.
Okay, so there is what's called a rationalist proof, an empiricist proof, a transcendental proof, and a pragmatist proof. Right, and so the reason I was asking you which of the 4 does your evidence you're presenting, what does it fall under, right? Because then that tells us, right, as interlocutors, how to deal with the information being presented, right? Because let's say it's a rational,
it's probably going to adhere to more of like an empiricist approach. So yeah.
Okay, so some data, and then
it matters. It doesn't matter.
Okay, so, well, I mean, it kind of does matter because if we are to be honest interlocutors, right, and you present an empiricist type proof, which could deal with studies, and it could be witness accounting, let's say, of some event in history, well, then I would have to respond in kind. I would have to respond with a counter empiricist proof. If you gave a rationalist type proof, meaning something that dealt with some sort of formal logic or inference rule, I would have to counter that with an inference rule, or I'd have to discount the inference rule being used. So it would let me know.
Look,
as an
there's
interlocutor.
no reason why I'd have to adhere to any particular form of proof. I don't need to achieve proof. I can achieve evidence, and that's what
you can't be taken serious as an interlocutor, sir. I'm sorry.
What do you mean by proof?
Right. Well, we're talking about like how we give evidence or substantiation. There are 4 types.
Okay. What do you mean by What do you mean by proof, though?
Okay. Well, the type of proof that you're going to give is either going to be empirical, which is going to deal with sense data.
What do you mean by proof? What do you mean by proof?
Proof, evidence. Proof, evidence sequencing, accounting.
Oh, okay. So it's evidence. Right. So proof is just evidence. Okay. So yeah,
well, that's another way you can look at it. Sure.
I don't know why you're just rejecting the science here. I have cited 3 or 4.
I'm not saying I'm rejecting the science.
I need that achieve p-values that are sufficient to and they're peer-reviewed. That apply that constitute scientific articles.
Well, I'm not saying I necessarily reject your proof. I just need to know the nature.
These are scientific articles that demonstrate something beyond chance. That's science. That's evidence.
No one is necessarily saying they reject it, but they need to know.
So then, is that evidence I provided?
Well, I mean, I don't know what type because you won't specify.
Did I provide any type of evidence?
You said you now just more so clarified.
Did I provide any type of evidence?
Okay. So really quick, so this is
right,
yes or no? But yeah,
according to you, yes.
And then
so then I provided evidence.
According to you, yes.
Okay. But not to you. Why not?
Well, because I'm not convinced that you even know what evidence is.
You're not convinced. It's not an argument.
Hold on, real quick.
I'm not convinced you know what evidence is.
Wait, guys, hold on. So let's answer that last question. Why do you think that he didn't provide evidence? And then we do got to move on to the next guest.
Right. Well, because if you're going to provide any kind of sequencing, proof, evidence, right, well, then there has to be a train of logic or something that substantiates it, right? And if we're going to be honest interlocutors, right, I would need to know, like if I was countering it, right, I would need to know what to counter it with. If he was presenting some sort of formal system that dealt with inference rules, I'd have to discount the inference rule, either premise by premise or statement by statement, or I would have to counter it with a superior one. So that lets me know.
Cares about this.
That lets me know as an interlocutor how to deal with
data that there is evidence for what I'm suggesting. Everything you just said is babble.
Okay, empiricist, you're just saying we saw this, we think this. That's all you're saying then. With
all right, guys, we do. Have
Congratulations, dude. You're dumb.
You're just rejecting data. Wow,
you're dumb. You're rejecting logic.
Wait, hold on, guys. Okay, so maybe later you guys can like set up a debate, and I would gladly host it. We can fill up my calendar with debates, but yeah, we do have to move on to the next guest.
All right, thank you for having me.
Yeah, come back anytime. If you follow me, I'll follow you, and thank you for being here.
All right, peace out.
Okay, I'm good.
You have to go, Edna?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's not letting me drop it. You might have to kick me.
Oh, okay. Sorry about that.
You might need proof for that first.
Might. but Edna,
where's proof of the button? Where's proof of the button?
Oh, and if you got to go, you can go ahead. Thank you for being here. And maybe I can talk to you later about doing another match with Mike, and we can get judges for that one that you both agree on. But yeah.
Maybe. I mean, Edna doesn't know what evidence is. They don't understand what science is. So it's hard to talk to somebody who doesn't know what science is.
Well, guys,
I think you just want to
Who thinks that you have to have conclusive proof in every study? That's just nonsense. Nobody takes you seriously.
It's not what I asked for, but okay. All right. Anyways, host, thank you for having
That's
me.
literally what you said this entire debate.
You didn't
You don't
prove
prove it. You didn't prove it. That's just
all right. But thank you for being here, Edna.
Thank you.
Yeah, we'll talk about it in DMs.
Okay. All right. Thank you.